Hello, fellow Cosmere RPG fans. I've been having a blast reading these PDFs the last couple days and just all the neat interactions and everything. But I just wanted to share a sort of early game combat debuff focused build that I've been working on this afternoon. This is when you can get rolling as early as level 3 if you have another player supporting you, or level 6 to be self-sufficient. I know this is all very new information, so I'm going to try to really break down each part of it and show you how it all interacts as I see it. And it's very possible I'm making mistakes or missing a rule, and if that's the case, please let me know. But anyway, we're going to jump into the Scholar Heroic Path, the Surgeon Ability, Anatomical Insight, which is what this kind of idea is all centered around. So Anatomical Insight is a special activation ability that says when you hit with an unarmed attack, you can spend 1 focus or opportunity to make the target exhausted equal to half your ranks in medicine. Let's jump into the full ruling. Those ones are just the blurbs. It starts down here, but the actual write-up is on the next page. So when you're hitting something that's your size or smaller, you can spend the focus to apply the debuff. The penalty applied by this condition equals half your rank in medicine, and notably, it's rounded up. A lot of stuff when we have it is rounded down, but this one's rounded up. That means if you can get yourself to a rank 3 in medicine, not a skill modifier, a rank 3 in medicine, every time you're hitting with an unarmed attack, you're applying a -2 exhausted debuff to that opponent, which is just nuts. So this build wants to do 3 things. It wants to get your medicine rank as high as possible. It wants to make as many unarmed strikes as possible. And it wants to find some way to get a focus discount, because spending it multiple times gets very, very expensive. Let's first jump into doing it as many times as possible, because the exhausted modifier, the exhausted condition, let me pull it up here for you. While exhausted, you're fatigued, and basically your skills and your tests have a negative number. So you apply a penalty equal to that number whenever you make a test. So if your opponent is exhausted and they're trying to hit you, say they roll a 15, actually with -2, that becomes a 13. But notably, unlike most conditions, exhausted has a cumulative effect. So when you gain a second instance, it's added on. So the next time you hit, they're now at -4, -6, -8, so on and so forth. I know in other RPGs, if you become exhausted enough, you actively die. For the Cosmere RPG, I couldn't find that exactly. I did see under insufficient food, every day you go past your kind of willpower, you become exhausted 1 and it accumulates again. If that reduces you to exhausted 10 or lower, you die. That's only through food though, so I don't know if it would apply in combat. Maybe that's a GM discretion thing. But anyway, so we want to stack as much exhausted on the opponent by making as many attacks as possible. I did worry that we could only use that ability once per turn, because we do have this ruling here that says that actions marked by the triangle symbol can only be used, but each named action can only be used once per turn unless stated otherwise. However, this is not an action marked by that triangle symbol. As we saw before, it is Anatomical Insight is a star, which is a special activation. I've got the rules for it up here. Actions are here, but special activations are a separate thing. And the always active even references, if a talent requires rolling a die, the talent is considered a special activation, even if you can do it anytime you encounter the situation. The situation in this case being that we hit with an unarmed attack. Anytime we encounter that situation, we can use this Anatomical Insight ability. So to me, that ruling reads, we can do this multiple times in a turn. So to get our multiple attacks, we'll go back to our actions. Obviously, we can make the strike attack action that costs one action, and then it explicitly states you can use the strike action more than once. It just costs 2 focus using your offhand to do so. So that gives us 2, but there is a third one if we hop into the agent heroic tree, and then the thief over here has cheap shot, which again spend 1 focus, very focus hungry, but we make an unarmed attack with thievery versus cognitive, raising the stakes. On a hit, the target is stunned. So that's a third one. So that's 1, 2, 3 actions. And I'll get into a way we can actually get a little more action usage later too. So that's how we're getting 3 separate unarmed attacks. And if those are all hitting, we're applying -6 exhausted to the target each turn, which is just going to make them completely worthless. The next thing that we need to do is get our medicine skill rank as high as possible. Typically, you can see in the early game here, levels 1 through 5, we have a maximum skill rank of 2 for those levels. So, we can't get it any higher than that. Unless you go into the scholar tree and you get erudition, temporarily gain a culture or utility expertise and a rank in 2 non-surge cognitive skills. Reassign them after a long rest with library access. And if we read the full rules for erudition, the scholar key talent. When you acquire this talent, you become You can use this talent to gain skill ranks even if they exceed your usual maximum for skill ranks. So that means at level 1, we can have 3 ranks in medicine. You're allowed 2 when you create your character, and then erudition lets you get an extra 1, meaning you hit 3, and then half that rounded up gives you 2. So each exhausted hit is applying -2. So the next problem we need to tackle is focus, because this build is a huge focus drain. Each use of Anatomic Insight is going to be using 1 focus, ideally 3 per turn, so that's 3 focus. Attacking with your offhand is using 2 focus, and Cheap Shot is using a focus. That's 6 focus right there. At level 1, even at level 3, I think the most focus you could possibly have is 5, because you can max the attribute and then add 2, so that would be 5. So this build does not work at all unless you become focused. And the focused condition down here, while focused, you are engaged and intent on your task. When you use an ability that uses focus, the cost is reduced by 1. This condition is just crazy strong. I think there's a lot of use for this. This lets you completely ignore that cost on many of those abilities, as well as reactive strikes and dodge abilities. So just actually, while I'm on that note, before I forget, in your reactions, in theory, you could use this reactive strike. If an enemy retreats, that's potentially, if you didn't stun them, that's potentially a 4th strike. So that's another -2, because that would be another unarmed strike. And if you're focused, it's free to make that reactive strike as they leave. Or if you're in trouble, you can just dodge for free as well without spending the focus. Anyway, that was a little tangent there. How do we get focused? The best way that I'm aware of, early game and maybe even late game, is with the Envoy. This would have to be another player, but if the Envoy becomes a mentor, and then they get this instill confidence ability down here, this lets quick rewind. The Envoy's rousing presence is their Envoy key ability. They can make an ally determined until the end of the scene. So that's potentially a really long time. Determined is just an ability that if you fail a test, you can add an opportunity to it. But this mentor tree gives them instill confidence, so rousing presence can make you focused instead of determined. So that means you're going to have that focus discount for all your abilities. Initially, when I was building this, I really wanted to make myself a mentor and then just instill confidence in yourself. But unfortunately, in the most Kaladin way ever, under target types, under allies, it says you are not considered your ally, so you are not your own friend. I know some games let you target yourself with ally stuff, but for Cosmere RPG, allies need to be a completely different person. So that's one way that we can get it, and probably the most efficient if you want to get this going early. The other way is you'd probably have to get up to level 6 here, but in the agent path here. So we started down to get that cheap shot for the extra unarmed attack, but you could do an investigator here, and with 3 more points, you're going to take watchful eye, and then down to quick analysis and gather evidence. Gather evidence. When you succeed on a cognitive test against a target, you become focused. And in the rules later, I'll get to them in a second, but that focus lasts until the end of your next turn. So effectively, you get 2 turns with it. Quick analysis is also really nice. This is a free action. So you spend 2 focus to gain 2 actions for cognitive tests with use a skill, gain advantage, or an agent talent. So in theory, basically, at the start of your turn, you could take a slow or a fast turn, doesn't matter, but you're going to use this free action, which gives you 2 bonus actions. And the first action you would use on gain advantage, probably with medicine. And one of the examples in the medicine section is to use medicine to find a previous injury or a weakness on the enemy that you could exploit. So use that to gain advantage, and then use the second one to use cheap shot. I'm just editing this here, and I realized I made 2 little mistakes here. The first one is for gather evidence. In order to become focused, we need to succeed on a cognitive test. So that gaining advantage will want to be done with our highest stat, which will probably be medicine in this case. So definitely use medicine. Not probably. Definitely use medicine to gain advantage so that you become focused. The other mistake is for quick analysis. I initially thought that the 2 actions you gain could be used for any agent ability, but it's any agent talent, but it's only agent talents that make cognitive skill tests, so you can't use it for cheap shot in this case, but it is still a very useful talent to have. But you've given yourself focused, and just to go into that gather evidence, here it is. You can see you become focused until the end of your next turn. So using that ability once would let you be focused for that turn and the following turn, effectively potentially allowing you 6 attacks that could all be applying a -2 debuff to exhausted. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of the build. Quickly, just looking at a character sheet for level 3, you're going to probably want 3 strength, because that's going to determine your damage dice for the unarmed attack, and also unarmed attacks use athletics. So you want those to hit, obviously. So we want that to be as high as possible. I also would say you're going to want 3 intellect and 3 willpower. The willpower is to give you as much focus as possible, and then the intellect is to up your medicine, because we'd be using that to gain advantage. Really, we only care about the actual skill ranks for the Anatomical Insight ability, but the extra medicine, bringing that up to 6, would mean when we use that to gain advantage, we have quite a high medicine modifier. Having the intellect also gives you 3 in deduction, which is a prerequisite for the agent tree. I'm blanking on the name right now. The investigator tree. You need deduction 1 here, and then insight 2 for that part. So that's why on this down here, by level 3, you'll have your 4 starting. You'll have your 4 starting skill ranks, and then you'd level up twice, so you'd have 8 total. You would get 1 insight for free if you start as an agent, so that gives you 1 insight there. And then you would spend 1 from your skill ranks. You'd spend 1 from your skill ranks to get you to 2, so that meets that prerequisite for the investigator ability. That leaves you with 1 point left over, which you could put anywhere you want. I have them written down there as these extras down here. So 1 you could put anywhere, but then you also have 1 more from erudition from the scholar keystone talent, which you could put anywhere. I'm just editing this in after the fact because I forgot to say that we want these 2 ranks in thievery to make our cheap shots more likely to hit. You probably want to invest a couple points up in speed as well to make that more likely, just so that you can stun more. And just to count it out for you, basically the build I would go is, so at level 1 you would go opportunist, and you get to pick a free talent for it. So at level 1 you would take opportunist and cheap shot, and then if you're a human you get a bonus which you can put into anything. So I would just take erudition to start that. So at level 1 you're an agent with cheap shot and erudition. At level 2 you would take field medicine, and then at level 3 you have anatomical insight, so you can get started. And then ideally you have a friend who at level 1 goes rousing presence in the Envoy key ability, and again, they'd be level 1, they'd get their extra 1, and then if they're human, even at level 1, they'd get 3. And then the next one they'd want to shoot for is this one. It does have a prerequisite of a companion. I suppose that's up to your GM if they want to reward that earlier in the campaign, or if you need to earn a separate companion, or could your companion just be one of the other players in the party? That's entirely up to them. But yeah, that's kind of my build. I hope you guys think it's cool. I'm definitely going to give it a try if I ever get to play. I'm probably going to be GMing for my friends more than anything, but I find it really fun to theory craft this type of stuff. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any other ideas for it, and I'd love to hear your build ideas too. Oh, and if you're a game master, don't forget that bosses can spend one focus on their turn to remove a condition from themselves. They don't care about this build at all. Thanks so much for watching.